Hey, everybody, this is Patrick Everson, senior reporter for VegasInsider.com, my new landing spot. Super happy to be here on this Wednesday afternoon, filling in for Kevin Rogers today. Happy to do so. You're going to get a little bit different perspective on things from me than from Kevin. Kevin's a super smart guy. I'm the guy who's betting for hashtag Chili's money. But thankfully, we've got a really good guest today. I'll bring him in just a few minutes here. Give a little bit of background on me. Just recently, as a lot of you might know, started with Vegas Insider. Again, very happy to be in that landing spot. It's a really good match for me. What I do is a great deal of reporting on how games are being bet, why lines are moving the way they are, where the sharp bettors are, where the public play is, via a lot of sources that I have behind the counter at sportsbooks across Las Vegas, where I've lived for many, many years, and also the sportsbooks more broadly, nationally, PointsBet, DraftKings, FanDuel, et cetera, et cetera. So I lean into a lot of those sources to provide a lot of you with information about why games are going the way they're going, the things that are happening. So that gives you some background for me. And again, Kevin's a super smart guy. I'll probably play a little more publicly and just try to have fun with sports betting, which hopefully you all are doing as well, and doing it responsibly to boot. And that's enough for me. So I am going to bring in our guest for today. And first off, I guess I should back up one moment. This is going to be college football centric today. College football week 1 is basically here. Thursday, you got a few games coming, and then you got a raft of games coming all week long, right through Monday night, in fact. So we're going to talk quite a bit of college football with Vegas Insider's Tom Carroll. Very happy to have him on today's show. And like I said, we're going to spin through a bunch of games here and get Tom's perspective, which I absolutely will be very well informed, much more so than mine. But I've got some fun things going on too. And in fact, I almost forgot. I got to get my first play out there really quick, Tom. My first play, college football week 1, Purdue plus 3.5. It sounds like the books I've seen from a couple of different sources of mine, as well as from some information I've seen. It looks like Penn State is kind of a heavy play this week in the Thursday night game in the Big Ten. Purdue at home, getting 3.5. I'll take the 3.5 at home. Now, with that said, let's bring back Tom Carroll. My bad being a little late with the pick there.
Yeah, that's okay. And it's Cunningham, not Carroll. Wrong Tom,
Carroll. Oh.
by the way.
And I got my Toms wrong too.
That's okay. We're on the same podcast here, so it's cool. Don't worry about that. Yes. Yeah, what's up, Patrick? How are you?
I'm good. I just got a little ahead of myself there, and it happens. That's the perils of live broadcasts.
There you go. That's okay. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot of these college games this week. We've got some great trends and some plays for you guys. So I'm ready to dive into it. Let's get to it, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the best place to start is with arguably the biggest game on the docket. And it's interesting. You've got Notre Dame ranked 5th in the nation. You have Ohio State ranked 2nd in the nation. A lot of buzz about a potential Alabama-Ohio State national championship months down the road from now. But number 5 against number 2, and you got like a 17-point spread here. It just shows you what the odds makers and really perhaps what the teams themselves are composed of, what the odds makers think about the difference between number 2 and number 5. Right. What do you make of that game?
Well, I think it also shows just kind of how top heavy this sport is when the 2 and the 5 ranked teams are that, 2 touchdowns, I think, is the spread. So what I would go with here, though, is I kind of like the over as a play. Notre Dame, they were 7-6 on the over/under last year. Ohio State was 8-5. So when you combine those two, it just slightly favors the over a little bit. When these two teams faced off a while back and went over, but that's kind of a long trend. That's kind of one that you can throw away. Ohio State, they've gone over, in 7 straight games when facing a school from Indiana. So there's just a lot of things that point to the over here. 70 points were averaged per game in Columbus last year as well. In terms of the spread, that's a high number. I have an issue with the 17. Ohio State also, they tend to not cover at home very well. So I know Notre Dame has a knack of seeing the favorite cover the spread, which has happened in 7 straight games for Notre Dame. But Ryan Daly, he's 11-13 against the spread in his last 24 games, and he's 5-6 in his last 11 against the spread at home. Notre Dame, they've covered in 9 of 10 regular season games, and the Irish, they are 7-4 ATS as an underdog and 2-1 as double digits in their last 3 games. So I think I'd go Notre Dame here to cover, but I think the over is the play at 59.5. And if you're one of those people who like to buy safety nets, feel free to get the alternate line and go down a little bit if you need to.
Yeah, there you go. That's a really good point to make. I kind of like looking at alternate lines sometimes. I don't know if I would look at it here, but alternate lines are definitely an interesting means by which to bet. Where I tend to look at them is on maybe favorites that are semi-short, and I think they're going to have a better game. So I'll take, I might take a 3-point favorite at -7 and get a little more payout at the window if I feel like they're going to have a good enough game. So I think it's a great point to make, no question. This game, to your point, Tom, you mentioned 2 touchdowns. I think that's about where it started, like 14 and a half.
Yeah.
One of the odds makers that I spoke with for my Vegas Insider report on college football week 1 did say the public is definitely taking the points with Notre Dame. Notre Dame, a very public team. And he said, really, it was kind of more sharp play that pushed Ohio State up. It seems to me these are both, in a manner of speaking, though, public teams.
Yeah, I would argue that. Absolutely. They're 2 of the more popular teams in college football. The 17 is just insanely high number for a top 5 matchup, essentially. Now, when the rankings did come out, I had questions about Notre Dame being number 5.
Right. That's part of the issue too. Exactly.
Yeah. Is that just also for pageantry? Like, hey, we have a 2 versus 5 matchup. Check it out. Week 1. It's a good matchup. It might not be, but I know Mark's motivation. Someone brought that up to him. Said, you guys know you're like a 14 and a half. I think it was 13 and a half at the time of the quote. I can't believe it's jumped that high, if that's true or not. But he using the spread as motivation right now. He said, yeah, well, I'll be sure my guys know that. And I like him a lot. So based off what I've seen from him so far with this team, which is really just 1 game, but I mean, he's handled himself really well. It's basically the type of vibe you'd want from a new coach, in my opinion. So I like Notre Dame here, but again, I think the better play is the over here. So I'm not too concerned about the spread moving. I just think it's interesting. But if you are taking the spread, I would hop on Notre Dame.
Right. And then, like you said, you like the over better, stay away from the spread, and just you get to see. I mean, it's always fun to just be able to sit back and root for scoring. I want to see touchdowns.
Exactly. The over is always the funnest bet.
Absolutely. And unders are just like, please don't score. Please don't score. Those are awful to go through. Let's move on to, this game's right up there as well. 2, top 10, 11 teams. But again, a really big spread, and that's Oregon going across the country to play Georgia. It's a neutral site game, sort of. I believe it's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. So a very short road trip for Georgia, and they're the first game defending national champion. But again, a big number in this game.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a home game for Georgia. Let's just call it what it is.
Sure.
40-minute drive, I believe, from Athens to Atlanta. With traffic, it's definitely more. But
yes, it is.
Atlanta traffic's no joke. Oregon, they've seen the favorite cover the spread in 6 straight games. I do like Georgia to cover the spread here. Oregon, they were 5-9 against the spread last year. Georgia was 10-5 against the spread over their 15 games that they played. And then going to some of the tech trends that one of our writers at VegasInsider.com, Bruce Marshall, provides. He's really, really good. So stealing kind of some of his trends here from an article we posted earlier. But Georgia, as I said, they were 10-5 against the line last year. Oregon, they're 2-4 ATS in their last 6 as the underdog. And I mentioned that trend about them seeing the favorite cover, I believe it's 6 straight games. So I really don't mind Georgia being the favorite here as a 17.5-point favorite. I think they'll dominate Oregon. I think Oregon's also a bit highly ranked at 11. I was a bit surprised because I would put USC, Utah ahead of them. I think they'll be kind of parallel with UCLA. That'll kind of be where Oregon, I think, kind of plays at their potential this year. Maybe like an 8-win, 9-win team. Sure. But so I think they're kind of highly ranked. They're kind of like Notre Dame. 11's a bit kind in my mind. And then I like the under. Georgia goes under a lot with that defense last year. That kind of inflated the number. But of the last 16 games, they've gone under 10 times. Georgia, they've gone under the point total in 6 straight season opening games as well. So I kind of like the under there, and I like Georgia. I don't have an issue with either play.
No, I get that, and I think in my report that's up on college football week 1 at Vegas Insider right now, one of the odds makers I spoke with noted that the line has actually come back a little bit. It was 18.5 down to 17.5. So if you like Georgia, you're getting, at least right now, a little bit better of the number. And I believe the total is up a couple of points. So if you're liking the under, you're getting a little bit better value there as well. And again, Georgia defending its national championship. And to your point, Tom, you mentioned a great defense. So the under certainly might be worth a look in that game. And quasi-neutral side, this is as you said, this is a home game. Oregon making a big trip, and Oregon really finished last season with a thud. They got hammered by Utah. Did they play them twice in a row? Did they play them right at the end of they played them late in the regular season and got run. And then they had to meet them again in the Pac-12 championship game, I should say, and got run there. Really ended with a thud there after what looked like a potential college football playoff bound season. It evaporated pretty quickly.
I will say about Oregon, though, I know we're really high on Georgia in this segment, but they did lose Thibodeau too on defense, but they do have a returning linebacker, Noah Sewell, who's really, really good. And so, I think if Oregon is going to compete in this game at all, they're going to have to obviously stifle Georgia's offense and Stetson Bennett and everyone else that they have. I mean, that's a pretty good offense that Georgia has. Noah Sewell is going to have to be kind of the main piece. I feel like I've been talking about Micah Parsons a lot lately, I guess because football season's coming up. But if he can do like what Micah Parsons does with the Cowboys, if he can be that X factor for Oregon on defense that can change a game, then that under at 52.5 is even more juicy. So the under might actually be the best play. Again, high spreads are very, very difficult to take. I know I'm pretty high on the Georgia spread, but just like Oregon has the potential to play good defense in this game just because Sewell could be that player. So yeah, maybe the under is the better play here. I might have just talked myself into it.
There you go. So live on the air, Tom Cunningham talking yourself into the Oregon Georgia under potentially. Moving along, this game is really interesting to me. There's been a lot of chatter in the offseason. I've heard it from some odds makers, from some bettors, and just generally speaking on college football about Utah potentially being kind of an under the radar play to make the college football playoff. They're ranked 8th. I think this is good scheduling on their part, because if you're gonna move up, you've got to schedule up and you've got to play in tough atmospheres on the road. The Utes are going to Florida. Now look, Florida's not ranked. Florida has not been a big deal of late, but still Utah's got to go to the swamp and play at night. Florida is home in the swamp at night, getting points. What do you make of that matchup?
I think this is a tough one. And the reason I think this is tough to pick is because of Napier, the new coach for Florida, who is a cover machine at Louisiana as an underdog and a straight up machine in general. He was 34-5 straight up over his 3 years at Louisiana, 7-2 as the underdog in his last 9. However, Florida last year as a team was 4-14-1 in their 19 games against the spread. So it becomes like what Florida identity are you going to go with? Are you going to go with the team that we kind of saw last year, who failed to cover 10 of 13 overall, or are we going to get Napier's team here? And so I think if you have conviction in what he's built with the Raging Cajuns over these last 3 years, I might take Florida here. Utah, they're 2-4 against the spread as a visitor. They've dropped 5 games in a regular season against the spread, not straight up. Against the spread, they've dropped 5 in a row against a non-Pac-12 school. But then you look at something like, Florida, them failing to cover the spread in 7 straight games, or 10 of their last 13. So it really comes down to you, the better. What do you think? What Florida team do you think you're getting? Are you going to get Napier's installment? Do you trust him to install his success from Louisiana to Gainesville, or are you going to fade them? But it does seem like Utah has issues covering against A, teams outside the Pac-12, and B, on the road. So this is one I would pass in general and not make a play. But if you're forcing me to make a play, golly, I'll give the Sun Belt some love. I'll go with Napier in Florida.
I think it's interesting. And honestly, I agree with you. I feel like, there's like I said, there's been a lot of love for Utah in the offseason. There's a lot of chatter around them. Like I said, maybe a sneaky pick to be one of the four, not to win a national. Well,
They
could be
could.
to win a national championship, but there are some prop bets out there from different books about, okay, who are the four teams going to be? Or will the four teams be this four or this four or this four? And Utah's in that conversation. But boy, I think this is a tricky place to put them.
Yeah.
Literally after week one, they could be out of that conversation. If they lose on the road to an unranked Florida team, then all of a sudden, they have all season to build their way back up. But that's the kind of game that I feel like the committee wants to see a team go and win if they really want to take them seriously later in the year.
And this will impact the Heisman odds for Cameron as well. Cameron Rising, the quarterback for Utah.
Yeah.
So this is a big game for him to kind of solidify himself on the national stage. I just look at everything and I say, all right, this comes down to me if Napier can bring that winning culture to Florida and his players buy in. I think that's what it's going to come down to the bettors, and that's what you're going to have to decide in this one.
Yeah, it should be a good one again, Saturday night in the Swamp. Let's back up a couple of days. We got a couple of noteworthy games on the Thursday night schedule to kick off college football week one. We got a taste of a handful of games last week. Nothing nearly as compelling as the three games we just discussed, and the next two we'll hit are compelling as well. Probably rival a couple of the better games on from last Saturday, Nebraska, Northwestern, and so forth. But let's start with the backyard brawl, West Virginia against Pittsburgh. Most people, I saw some people joking about it earlier on Twitter today. They're like, is it already Thanksgiving? West Virginia's playing Pitt. What's going on here? It's not Thanksgiving. It's still going to be, I imagine, hot and humid in that part of the country rather than cold and potentially snowy. But what do you make of that contest?
Well, I think like a lot of West Virginia's numbers are a little skewed from if you're basing your plays off of their numbers from last year, because JT Daniels is there now, the quarterback, who's kind of jumped around the nation. He's kind of done like a triangle in a way. But I think that West Virginia is like a sneaky team this year. I think there's a lot of good value on West Virginia. I mean, if JT Daniels can play to his highest potential, what he was coming out of high school and what he was supposed to be at USC and Georgia, West Virginia should be like everyone's dark horse this year. But Keaton Slovis can make the same case at Pitt. So you really have two quarterbacks facing off looking to prove a lot. And they are Heisman caliber if they're at their highest potential. So I might go over here. Just go kind of go with like a quarterback shootout in a way.
Sure.
There are some, I'm gonna go like perpendicular here with this though. All right. So West Virginia, they've gone under in 5 straight road games when they're facing a top ranked team, an AP ranked school.
Gotcha. And Pitt is
ranked. Yeah. They're also 20-14 on an under run over their last 3 seasons. Now I say that in Pitt, they're 17-9 on the over those games. And like I said, I really like the offense in this. I like the two quarterbacks and what they could possibly try to showcase in this one. So honestly, I think I might go over here. In Pitt last year, they were 5-2 on the OU. So in this venue, points are scored. 68.9 points were averaged per game in Pitt last year. And now I know they had Pickett and Addison.
Right.
Like that's it's a huge injection to that stat.
Sure.
But like I said, you've got two high caliber quarterbacks with, in my mind, a lot to prove to everyone this year. I think they're going to be playing with chips on their shoulders. Slovis kind of got ran out of USC. JT Daniels been ran out twice. It's like Pennington when he won the comeback player of the year twice. It's like, can I get some respect anywhere? But I don't know. I think I'd go over here as the safe play. If you want to take a spread and an ATS side, I might go Pitt just because they were cover machines last year, and you kind of might not know what JT Daniels you're going to be getting with West Virginia. I mean, he can play really high, but he can also play kind of low too. So I think Pitt has just more conviction. They're at home, so they don't have to travel. And then this is kind of a weird trend. The team ranked 17th in the AP poll has covered the spread in 5 of 6 games.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a different one. To a couple of your points that I thought were interesting on taking the over there. I mean, you noted it's 68.9 points, I think, per game. Pitt home games it sounds like they were right up there with Ohio State in very points laden affairs last season. So, and obviously, as you noted, Kenny Pickett is a big part of that. But you're talking 51.5 now. That's a lot of room. And like you said, you've got two quarterbacks looking to make some noise. Let me throw perhaps a little curveball at you on that West Virginia. If you think they're kind of sneaky, do you look at them at all in the Big 12? Do you think that's just too big a bridge to cross?
I think it's too big a bridge to cross. I actually think if you're going to look for a dark horse in the Big 12, I think Baylor is where you start. We actually have them ranked as the highest Big 12 team entering this season on our power rankings. So I think there's a lot of value in Baylor in the futures bet. But going back to this game, I found two other trends. Again, you got to take this with a grain of salt because of the new quarterbacks. But Pitt is 7-1 in their last 8 versus the line when facing a school outside the ACC. So they clearly have no issues covering against teams at the conference. And West Virginia is 2-7 ATS in their last 9 road games.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah,
again,
all
quarterbacks. So
new quarterbacks could be, and obviously that could play toward. You mentioned the under trend that existed for West Virginia, but this new quarterback, that trend may become not nearly as meaningful, and you like the over in that game. So, all right, very good. Let's move on to the second of the two most noteworthy Thursday night games, and that's a Big Ten matchup. Penn State going to Purdue. In talking with Zachary Lucas, one of my sportsbook sources for the article I have up at VegasInsider, I believe he noted Penn State open 2.5 up to 3.5. Been at 3.5 for a little while, fairly stable there at this point. What do you think about this matchup?
I think Purdue could win outright. That's kind of surprised to see that the number go that way. Penn State let me see here. I think Purdue. Yeah, I think Purdue to cover is good. They're 16-9 ATS over their last 2 full seasons, if you don't count the 2020 COVID season.
Gotcha.
Brawl 12-5 ATS last 17 when he's the underdog. So you got that going for you if you're Purdue. Let's see if there's anything else here. Purdue, they've covered the spread in 4 straight games when facing a non-ranked opponent. So there's a few things that actually point in the favor of Purdue covering the spread here. So I would argue Purdue would be a good place to start here. And if the public is betting that number for Penn State, maybe you wait a little bit and see if maybe it gets to 4. I doubt it will, but it might. You never know. We've seen the Ohio State number climb to 17, which is just crazy. But I think Purdue is a fine play here. It's just, James Franklin I like. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I do like James Franklin. So I wouldn't be surprised if Penn State covered this game. But all the trends are pointing to Purdue to maybe just win outright. So honestly, if you think Purdue can cover the spread, maybe you take a chance with this and make this your equity bet, as we like to call plus value plays.
There you go.
But honestly, I don't have a ton of conviction in this pick, but I guess I'd go Purdue here.
Right. And, it's interesting, again, in my discussion with Zachary Lucas about this game, director of retail sports at TwinSpires, he gives me pretty good information pretty regularly. And on this game, he noted that Purdue is going to be one of the book's bigger needs of week 1, which I thought was kind of fascinating. It's not like they've moved the number super aggressively, but they did get through the key. They did get through the key number. So he said Purdue is going to be a very key need for the behind the counter in week 1. And I saw some stats from DraftKings this week as well, where it looked like tickets and money were very heavy now from a small pot. Most of the money is going to come in on game day. Most of the money is going to come in closer to kickoff.
Yep.
But relative to the pot that existed midweek at DraftKings, tickets and money were both running about 4-1 on Penn State. So there were certainly believers there that helped push that line up a little bit. And I got to assume that, multiple books are in a position where they're going to be Purdue fans tomorrow, and perhaps you might as well.
Yeah, the straight up win is going to be difficult, though, because Penn State just has their number. So I don't know if they're going to win straight up. That's kind of like wishful thinking. And then you won't get a great money line with that low spread number. But maybe you just play it safe and go with the 3.5. But again, I have no conviction in that. That would be like my lowest confidence poll.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Understood. And then we got another a couple of teams in another non-conference matchup that's interesting. Cincinnati put it together last year and made it all the way. Got the college football playoff berth that people had been screaming about that they deserved. They got there. It was, it was a 1-game stay, but it's certainly an accomplishment that they were among the final 4 teams last year. They now travel, the Bearcats travel to Arkansas, got to open with an SEC team. Both these teams ranked, I think, is Arkansas ranked a little bit higher than Cincinnati, I believe. To go back and check that, I can just look at I can go look at this right now. So I will, since I can. Yeah, going back here. All right. Actually, I'm not seeing it, but, I think this is Cincinnati doesn't, obviously lost some key players. I think this is not quite comparable. It's not comparable to Utah, Florida in every way, but I think in one way it is. Utah's going to face an SEC team, and SEC teams are just a different beast, and they're even more of a different beast at the top of the SEC, which Florida is not and Arkansas is not, but still Cincinnati going on the road to face an SEC team, that seems like quite a challenge, and it would be a feather in the Bearcats' cap if they can somehow continue the success they had last season and find a way to win down there. Did we lose Tom there for a moment? Well, if so, we're going to take a peek, and we're going to take a peek at these numbers anyway, and tell you what I can tell you about these, about this game at this point, based on what we've been seeing, some of the numbers I've been seeing, and some of the information that's come across my desk over the last few days or so. And checking into college football week 1 numbers and so forth. And again, this is from a good guy behind the counter, Zachary Lucas, for this Cincinnati Arkansas game. Let me scroll back up and find it in my pecking order in the week 1 odds and action report that's up on VegasInsider right now. Arkansas laying almost a touchdown, -6.5. I think that's where it's at right now. With the odds maker I spoke with, this actually dropped to Arkansas 5.5 for a bit. And again, this is Zachary Lucas said there was a little bit of sharp play on Cincy plus 6.5, which helped bring that down. Now, since then, get my last picks in here as well. I got to do that. Since then, I believe it's gone back to 6.5. Again, a little sharp play brought it down. Maybe the public coming back on the SEC team. So don't be surprised if the public continues to do so. The SEC has got that reputation, even among the teams that are a bit lower down. So look, Tom dropped off a little unexpectedly there. My apologies for that. But again, appreciate you joining us on Down to the Wire, subbing in for Kevin Rogers today and doing it from a little bit different perspective. I'll give you a couple of different things I'm looking at the top of the hour. Noted that I like Purdue plus 3.5, and Tom Cunningham kind of backed that up in our discussion just a few moments ago. I like the plus 3.5 on Purdue at home. Hopefully find, and again, if you feel strongly, maybe you put a little money line sprinkle on Purdue as well. But Penn State's always going to have a good outfit. But I just feel like Purdue at home on Thursday night might be the way to go at the plus 3.5. A couple others I'm looking at. I believe I'm with Tom Cunningham on this as well. Notre Dame getting 17. I'm not necessarily sold on Notre Dame. I'm definitely not sold on them being the 5th best team in the nation if they are catching 17 points, even against Ohio State at the Horseshoe. I don't think that's I don't think that's a sign of a team that should be ranked 5th in the country. Perhaps we'll find out. But I do like the plus 17. That's up from, I think it opened 14.5 up to 17. So take a ride with Notre Dame in one of the more interesting, if not the most interesting game coming up on this Saturday. And then also, and look, this will be one pure difference between me and Kevin Rogers. This is a completely square play, but I don't know, sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours, they'll start putting up first half lines for the weekend games. Alabama, over the last few seasons, I think it died off a little bit last year, but they were for a bit there, a first half spread covering machine. The number's not out there right now for the first half, at least not at BetMGM and a couple of others that I checked with. But whatever it is, it's going to be something ridiculous. It's going to be 22, 23. It might even be 24 points. I don't know. I'm going to take Alabama first half just for fun. first half spread on Alabama as the Crimson Tide host Utah State. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to sub in for Kevin Rogers today. He'll be back soon. Appreciate any and all of you who tuned in or who might watch this back when we get the recording set up and fire it out into the Twitterverse and possibly YouTube and so forth. Hope you all have a really productive, fun, entertaining college football week 1, and obviously a profitable week 1, if at all possible. For Vegas Insider and Down to the Wire, I am Patrick Everson. Have a great weekend.